a mayoral candidate for our great city. Are you ready?
I'm ready. It is such an important discussion to have, so I'm ready to have it.
All right, so I'm not going to hold it up any longer. We're going to give Mr. Gary Goodweather an intro, and right after this, we will see our good brother.
Roll it.
Prosperity. It starts with a government that supports individuals and businesses, and we are going to rewrite the tax code to ensure it does exactly that. We are also going to make it vastly easier to do business with the District of Columbia because you are the client. And we're going to create a city that is affordable to ensure that everyone can prosper in Washington, D.C. Ultimately, my vision for prosperity is for people to enjoy their lives in Washington, D.C., want to live here, want to start their businesses here, raise their children here, and have a great life in the greatest city in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me present to some and introduce to others the awesome Mr. Gary Goodweather. How are you today, sir?
I am outstanding. How are both of you?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Um, Man, what an introductory video that was. You definitely hit on a lot of areas that I think speaks to a lot of our residents and potentially your future constituents. So just start off by just giving us a brief introduction of yourself. Take a couple of minutes, tell us who you are, where you come from, and what makes you run for this seat of mayor.
I think those are all good questions. So, I'm Gary Goodweather. I have, in a lot of ways, DC is my life. Other than my time on active duty in the Army, my entire professional career is here. My I met my wife here. Both my kids were born and raised in the city. Actually, where I'm sitting right now is the house when my before my wife and I even got married, we saw this house and said this is it. And over 22 years later, this has been our life. I why am I running? Right. That is, I get the question pretty much every day, multiple times a day actually, and it is because I love this city. And because I recognize that we are all connected as a city. It actually really goes to just what I believe, whether it's faith in my faith or just humanity, that we are all connected, that we are all the same, and we all have a responsibility for one another. And what I want to do, what we are going to do, is we have all these incredible resources here in DC. All right, we have all the people, all the experience, everyone who's lived here their entire lives, people who have come here that wanted to make a life for themselves here. And I want to utilize all the people here in our city to be able to create a place, actually, like that video said, where that people can prosper. And I think a lot about prosperity. And to me, yeah, it may be economic prosperity, it may be just happiness, but it's so that people actually enjoy their lives, that everyone enjoys their life here in the city.
I absolutely love that. So we're going to get right into it. We have so much to talk about. And I want to just start off as in someone who's in the education field for the past 5 years or so, talking about education. This is a very alarming thing that I actually was talking about with someone this morning is only 36% of DC third graders are reading at grade level. I will agree with you where you said that is unacceptable. So you're talking about launching in Every Child Reads literacy program. You're talking about fully implementing the science of reading. Um, can you expand on your thoughts
Yeah.
on how you're going to go about doing these things?
Yeah, I mean, and I guess I want to start with we need to understand that we need to be focused on long-term outcomes, right? And that starts with at birth. And even I was talking to a doctor at Children's Hospital, and they, my understanding is Children's Hospital actually runs many of the clinics throughout the city, and this doctor works at Howard University Hospital as well, and in all the science shows how important it is even from birth, right, to start taking care of and educating our children. And is just we are the way that we are, and this doctor was saying how they pretty much depending on the mother's situation will take the mother away from the child at birth. And my point here is that we education and lifelong outcomes start at birth. In terms of outcomes, I think that DC has been focused on the wrong outcomes. We've been focused on just getting kids to move to the next grade level. We've been focused too much on test scores without really taking a look at giving teachers and educators, the professionals, the ability to be able to connect with our children and educate them in the right way. So part of what we are going to do is create a system that a science-based system that empowers teachers more, empowers educators more, to be able to identify identify individuals, kids' needs. A couple other comments I'll make though is just in my experience, right? So my daughter is dyslexic. She's in college now, and they effectively DC didn't have the resources to be able to support her. By the way, she's doing great now. She's thriving, but that was in part, we were fortunate to be able to get her a space at the lab school here in DC, and that was really life-changing for her. I want that for every student. I want every student to have the opportunity, regardless of financial means, the opportunity to thrive. Number one. And I also think that we need to be creating more lifelong skills. And I'm not sure if you've seen it yet, but I wanted to make sure that one of the first idea papers, the solution papers that we put out, was something called the Capital Core, and modeled after. It starts with the premise that service defines us. It builds community. It creates accountability, responsibility, and teaches people lifelong skills. And I sort of modeled it after my time in the military. A little bit off of AmeriCorps, modeled it after actually somewhat the Marion Barry Jobs Program as well. And we have 8 different branches, including an education core, a technology core. So the 8 cores are for what the city needs, what our residents needs, and what we need to do to be able to, as a community, for each other to be able to create those skills. And one thing that I want to say too is that right now we teach, or we test, I should say, third graders at the end of the year, and that's important because in third grade you stop at, or say after third grade, you stop reading, you stop learning to read, you start to read to learn, and I think that's important, and this is also where there are examples throughout our country and through the world where they're doing it right. So Mississippi had some of the worst literacy rates in the country, some of the worst long-term outcomes, but now it's actually, Mississippi is an example of a model that we can replicate, or at least be able to study and be able to implement here in DC to actually create better outcomes.
Gary, very insightful. Appreciate that. We know that you're a real estate developer and the managing partner principal of GME Investments, a firm that you founded in 2014. You have about some 30 years of experience in the financial and operations management, including previous work with CBRE and hotel development right here in DC. Now, my question is you're running against an establishment of politicians. You've never held an elective office. Why should voters trust a real estate executive to navigate the bureaucracy of the Wilson Building?
So that 30 years experience, first of all, it starts with my view of leadership, right? And exactly because of the 30 years of experience and expertise that I've accumulated here in DC, because I've dealt with every level of DC government, I'm sure there's some little group, I'm sure there's organizations within the agencies that I haven't dealt with, but I've dealt with every single one of them, right? And because of that is in a large part why I am running, because I know how hard it is to actually get shit done in DC, how hard it is, how hard it is at times just to be a resident. And this is where I actually feel incredibly fortunate, because I get to run in a city with an incredible amount of intellectual capital, with an incredible amount of expertise and experience, and get to utilize that to create better solutions. But it also goes to my view of leadership. And this is where I was always taught, and I do believe, which is leaders are not born, they are made. And ultimately, it's not about me, right? It is, I rely on experts. I rely on so many different people to be able to help all of us design and you'll hear me say this a lot, execute on plans that actually make a difference. So why should you trust me? This is where I'm at. I'll actually use one of our campaign principles, or I'll just mention our campaign principles, because it is that 30 years of experience and work that has driven. They're just go to everything, not just how we run this campaign, but how we're ultimately going to run the city. And it's 4 principles: creativity, collaboration, empathy, and execution. And they are all equally important. They are all important. And I got to say, in this, we are seeing real time right now what leadership looks like, if you want to call it that. What leadership looks like without empathy and with no plan of execution, and how we get there is just as important to the destination. Did that, I mean, tell me, did that answer the question? Is it, that is, why trust me? Because I care. Because this is what I want to do to be able to help our city, to be able to help the people of our city. That's it.
Go ahead, Tom.
What I was going to say, the first thing that rings a bell to me is I heard the military. I heard the Army in you. My father served as a command sergeant major for 42 years. So it almost gave me chills that, you know, it gave me chills thinking that he was in the room somewhere. So, you know, when you're talking about trust, you know, we're talking about your dedication, obviously, to the community, to the world, with your service to not only in the United States Army, but my understanding is the Army, National Guard as well. So, first of all, thank you very much for your service to our country. You know, that's obviously very important and is, you know, a grassroots to who you are. I can tell that right off the bat.
I just gotta say, and by the way, a command sergeant major, that's serious. That's like, but and I'll say also, I think it's an advantage. I think it's an advantage that I'm not a career politician. I mean, I think differently, and that is, and that's been molded, I guess I would say, over my life.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll go as far as to say is that's the reason why some of us, I know myself, definitely supports ranked choice voting. For one, we are trying to get rid of this cycle of recycled DC politicians. It's the same circle, and they are just passing down that same circle from. I'm getting tired of it. I'm getting tired.
Another reason I'm running, and I will say, and this system in DC has effectively been set up for that, and we want to change that. And when I do my job well, right after I serve, well, while I'm serving, even while I'm conducting myself during this campaign, hopefully I encourage the next generation of leaders, thoughtful and empathetic leaders, to want to run for office, because it ain't easy, and in some ways that's a problem, because we want the most thoughtful, the most empathetic, diverse leaders that we can get. And I apologize, my table's, I must be getting a little excited because my table's shaking a little bit. But
I think that was a good moment for me to take some time for a plug-in. Raise your voice. Diverse, different. We're on a mission and we all have one vision. If you are interested in being someone like our candidate, Mr. Gary just talked about, who wants to make a difference, who wants to, who think you have maybe some policies ideas or some suggestions to maybe fight crime or better our education situation, join Rising Voices of Politics DC. Maybe you're interested in running for office and you just don't know where to get started. You don't have the resources to get started. You need the help. You need information. Listen, we are here to help you. You can visit us online on our website, risingvoicesdc.org, or you can send us an email at connect@risingvoicesdc.org. So, yeah, I just had to take a moment.
Perfect.
I think that was a perfect segue. And before we get back into the nitty gritty, listen, I wanted everyone to understand. Listen, guys, I know some of us east of the river, when I talk, they're like, who is Gary Goodweather? I keep hearing his name. Who is this guy? So listen, I want y'all to understand and see a different side of Mr. Gary. And I promise you, you might laugh a few times during this brief break intermission. But we're going to watch our brother, as I say, get down with the get down.
Uh-oh, here we go.
And then we're going to come right
can I tell a quick
with some
story?
more questions.
Okay, but after that, can I tell a quick story?
Sure. See you.
This is how we do it. It's about to go down. It's about to go down.
Wow.
For the day I die, I'ma touch the sky. I get those goosebumps every time. I need a benzo.
That just reminded me of some of us dancing at the ANC holiday party just recently.
I do, man, really quick. It's a longer story, but I'm not sure that I would be married today with my incredibly amazing wife and have these kids if it were not for my dancing. Long story short, I was sort of a third wheel at a party, and I started dancing crazy. And this is a long time ago, and my wife noticed me because of it, and when I happened to run into her, I didn't talk to her again. Happened to run into her again. Or I danced with her a little bit that night. About 7 months later, ran into her on the corner of Connecticut and K, and she said, "Wait, you're John Travolta." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "I remember you." And then that's when we just started talking all the time. And after our first date, that was it. We were together. So there's more to the story, but that was the gist of it.
Wow, there's a lesson in that. People do not be afraid to dance.
Yes, and it's fun.
I like that kick. It was pretty high too. Maybe Rockettes is in your future. Who knows?
So yeah, let's get back to it, man. One of the biggest issues in DC is housing, and of course, affordable health care. You're proposing to actually do something about our housing situation. You're proposing to expand our Housing First initiatives, expanding mental health and substance abuse services, improve our economic stability through employment programs, reducing criminalization and promoting community-based solutions, which I love to hear. And another thing you said is that we shouldn't have to choose between negotiating lower prescription costs and that make us be in a position to choose between paying rent or filling a prescription. And as someone who has an 85-year-old grandfather in this city that lives in Ward 1, that means a lot to me. And so I know our brother Tom has some follow-up questions, but I definitely wanted you to kind of touch bases on that.
On this, I want to start and that and because it's just so important to me. Mental health is health, yes. and I don't know, and I honestly, I'm trying to figure a way to stress that, to really get it across to people. And I think as we work to address homelessness, we need to think about the basic needs, right? Housing and food, mm-hmm. right? And I think that just by the virtue of being homeless, whether it's addiction or financial situation, it doesn't matter. It is a traumatic experience. And we need to be able to address that, to be able to then work with every individual person to be able to see what they need and get them on a path to ultimately not being homeless and be on their own, to be able to enjoy their life. I love talking about this also goes, and look, I've got a fairly significant background in housing and real estate, right? That is, I don't say that's the easy part, but we can do that. We've got a lot of ways to ensure that the homeless are not housing. Again, that is just the basis. Having a house and food. And not to geek out a little bit too much, but this sort of gives my thinking on, you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Have you ever, effectively it's a pyramid. It's like almost like a food pyramid. And the idea is that the basic needs are housing, food, and in some regard, each other, right? Community. Healthcare costs. So we talk a lot about affordability. So what do we need to do to actually bring down the cost of living in DC? And this is what we are doing. We are working on now to because it is incredibly important to me that we are improving people now. We're putting everything out there, right? We're putting all of our ideas out. We can act on if the ones that we cannot act on now, we do, but ultimately when we take office, that we can execute on them. We are working on building the first of its kind indoor controlled vertical farm in Washington, D.C. We're going to produce produce in D.C. We're going to create jobs of all different kinds. And we're going to be able to make, in some small measure, food more affordable because we are doing it here. Our transportation costs are effectively nothing. It's as green as you get. Prescription drug prices. So, and this just as one example is the GLP drugs, right? All the research right now is showing that they have the potential for societal change. We need to make drugs like that accessible, affordable to everybody. And by the way, not just treating obesity, but and all the illnesses that are associated with that. The research is showing that they are addressing all kinds of effectively curing chronic illnesses. How as a society do we not want to ensure that people have access to medications like that? So, and this is where I really I had the idea that we would compound them here in DC, right? And I actually mentioned that to Oye months and months ago, and then actually somebody who worked in the Biden administration said, "No, Gary, here's another way of doing it, right? To make it affordable for everybody." And so, food, prescription drug prices. I can give a lot of examples just on healthcare as well, on how we can ultimately reduce healthcare costs as well, and obviously preventive healthcare is incredibly important as well, including ensuring that everybody has access to healthcare, and very important. I'd also, yeah, please.
Gary, what I was going to talk, I want to talk to you a little bit about a conversation that I had with somebody just today on a bus going through Ward 8. We had the pleasure of sort of talking before the bus got there, and really nice lady. She literally took the scarf off of herself and gave it to another person she didn't know at the bus stop. That's the spirit of Washington. That's the spirit of Southeast. Yes. But as I got to talk to her a little bit more, and I told her who I was, because we were just feet from our ANC office, she shared with me and she asked me a question that made me think of the long line that we just had. She said, do you know where I can get help with my first month's rent? And that is a question that so many of our residents are having to deal with. Just a month or two ago, I think less than 2 months for sure, we had the ERAP program, Emergency Rental Assistance Program, reopen for one day.
And lines out the door because the city's systems didn't even work. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, in part, the red tape of why they did it in person is should be answered, and somebody should be held accountable to that. Being out there personally with myself at 6 o'clock in the morning, I was there was 30 people in line at that point, and then by a couple of hours gone by, we've got almost 1,000 people showing up. And if it doesn't speak volumes to the winding line around the building, that's what a lot of our neighbors are facing. And so what specifically would you do, and what would you recommend me saying to that neighbor of mine that said, what resources are available to me to help pay my first month's rent? In the back of my mind, I was thinking, I don't know, ERAP, Salvation Army, things like that. But what would you say to the person that's asking that very question, and how do you plan to specifically address people with those concerns?
I mean, in terms of, sort of the immediate, what I would say is that ERAP needs to be funded better, right? I mean, in terms of just immediate resources, we have an affordability crisis here, and I think that we need just better educate. We need two things. We need better education on the programs that we do have, and I guess sort of together, and better ways to be able to access those programs. This goes exactly to what I've experienced for 30 years in DC, and we have a lot of check the box programs here, right? But it's whether or not they're funded well enough, and whether or not people know about them, and even if they do know about them, how do they actually get them?
Are there any particular programs that come to mind that you would enhance, take away, combine? How would you be able to? How would you convey that information? Like, why didn't a list of a place that I could tell this person to go to, where there's a list of people that can immediately assist her, that has all of the resources? A checklist of try this. I know the information changes constantly, but are there any programs where you specifically would like to enhance or create right off the bat?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of we need an overhaul of all of our systems, and there is so much inefficiency and duplication of programs that can be reduced, and just by the reduction of those programs, or even reporting of programs, we can reallocate those dollars to the programs where to same program or access to it easier, to be able to fund, for those monies to actually go to people. So in terms of we see a lot of duplicative program here that aren't effective. And yes, we need to evaluate those and reallocate the dollars there.
So I need to butt in and ask you really quickly on when you talk about programs, one that has my interest. Violence interruption. Do you believe that A, it's effective, and B, do you believe that it has been utilized in its most efficient way?
It's an interesting way to ask that question. So, does violence interruption work? I mean, yes. May I say sort of how we address it, right? Is I think that no, it has not been necessarily used in the right way, and this is where. And look, I in a lot of ways, I want to make this part more conversational to see what you're seeing and get ideas. But what I do want is police officers to be parts of our community. Let them raise their kids in the city. Let them afford to be able to live in the city, right? I talk to police officers all the time who can't afford to live in the city, who say that certain areas aren't safe for them to go. And by the way, they don't want to send their kids to some of our to their schools, right? So, in my experience, I want the best trained officers. I also want them to be a part of our community, truly a part of our community. When I was growing up, I mean, police officers were, they would play basketball with people, with kids. They were in our schools in a good way, right? And because they lived in our community.
Yes.
And I will say, and also in my experience, the best trained officers, and I'll say, and most empathetic, right? I think I come back to our principles of empathy, but in my experience, when shit goes down, the best trained officers lead to the best outcomes, not just for the potential victims, but for the perpetrators as well. And I know I am focused on improving the lives of Washington, D.C. residents, but we've seen over the past 24 hours in other parts of the country, putting even aside whether or not their mission, ICE's mission, and you need the best trained professionals. You want the best trained professionals, especially.
Gary, am I hearing you say, what would you do with the violence interrupters in general? What would your plan be? Would you keep that program, or would you find or create a different program?
I would think that we would probably. I think we'd probably look at creating a different program, and primarily by, which again I'm seeing in all different levels of government, to merge different programs under one leader, to one organization, and staff to a level that actually works. Staffing levels that actually work, that are actually effective, and so I do want to bring this back to our Capital Corps program, because I don't think that you can
really quickly. I just want to make sure our viewers understand clearly. There are two separate violence interruption programs, and so when Mr. Goodweather, who is a candidate running for DC mayor, is saying he wants to replace the program with something else altogether, he's referring to the program that's under the mayor's hat. The Attorney General runs its own separate program, which in my opinion, they sort of should work together anyway.
Yeah, 100%.
but and the attorney generals has been more effective in my opinion also. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to make sure it's clear that we're talking about what the mayor is doing here.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I think it's been shown that the Bowser administration has not followed through on implementation of the violence interruption programs to the best effect. So, if the question is specifically, those two programs, I want to be careful about just saying, a wholesale redo of them. We need to evaluate everything, but we also need to make sure that the programs that are in place are operated well, that they're effective. And so far, what we've seen is that they are not being funded, they are not being implemented in the best way possible. Look, it could be an expansion of the existing programs. I don't know yet.
You said you brought something up. You mentioned the National Guard. Obviously, the National Guard, I think, is close to you. As an A&T commissioner, I unfortunately witnessed one of my own constituents, dramatically shoved into a car by ICE agents after he was stopped due to him riding or driving his moped onto the sidewalk. It was dramatic. I'm glad I didn't speak Spanish to understand what he was saying to me because he knew who I was. But in his calls for help, he was also telling me to tell his family. It was dramatic. It was heartbreaking, and it took me a week to find out and reach out to his family. A week prior to this, we had Lieutenant Roberts with MPD give us the most detailed description of, their involvement or ICE's involvement, and these sort of jump out crews, as people have been referring to them as. And it was a little chilling. And I've seen it dissipate since that. I mean, I haven't seen, we were seeing these jump out crews on a weekly basis. One of the things you were talking about is having, our police officers more involved in our lives. Community policing. We have a police officer on the corner of 22nd and Minnesota almost every single morning that knows a good number of those kids' names. When you talk community policing, he stops, he talks with everyone. He knows our community. His name is Officer Pierce. And the reason I bring that up is with what we're doing with ICE and what we're doing with these jump out crews, we are traumatically damaging the relationship between the very people that are keeping us safe. What is your plan to move this city forward in trusting MPD and our law enforcement?
May I start by saying, and there is no place for the National Guard to be here in this way, period. It is antithetical to what I took an oath to the Constitution of the United States for and what I was willing to die for. So, in the way, and ICE needs to get out. No, in this way, it's about execution, collaboration with MPD, and that needs to stop. So the question is how do we move forward, right? And this is where there needs to be, where leadership matters, accountability matters, and we want to, and obviously we have an interim chief police officer now, but leadership starts leadership starts with a leader, and ultimately it is on me It is my responsibility. I am responsible for everything that my people do and do not do. And I also need to be held accountable. And more succinctly, when we look for a new police officer, want to do that, we want to make sure that we are looking for one that embodies the expertise, the skills, including the ones that I talk about a lot: creativity, collaboration with everybody, and most importantly, with all 700,000 of us, the residents, that leader is empathetic, and that there's the fourth principle, execution. And I can't say this enough. There is that execution includes accountability, and accountability to the people that they are sworn to protect.
I can't tell you how much I love the word accountability and transparency. With that said, Pastor Mike, if you don't mind, sorry, I have a question that is, I think, going to be the most important question of every candidate running for mayor, and that is, how are you going to operate with the President of the United States? Now, we all know that this is a tightrope, that you're walking a line. There's probably, we don't really probably understand the true magnitude of the relationship between our mayor and the President of the United States. We have not lost the city yet. However, that delicate tightrope, how would you approach it as mayor? What would the relationship be looking like with with the president? Tell us a little bit about your vision with working with the difficult relationship with the president.
I think that working with the president is an interesting nuance of words, but and used the how, right? That's what I focus on a lot. And number one is that as a leader, we need to be showing competency and strength by working together as a council, as the mayor, with our attorney general. I will give you just a couple things that I think probably should have been done. And look, as you said, maybe we don't know everything that's occurred or what's happening sort of behind the scenes. I do want to make one other point quickly, just some other things. DC and the residents of DC are my life, and I will do everything to advocate for them. That is my mission. That is what I am going to take another oath to do. I think that what we have seen is that lawsuits work, and maybe not as fast as we want, but the mayor, the attorney general should be working collaboratively together and creatively to be able to address whatever the Trump administration puts in front of us. I think that by also showing that we can take care of ourselves, and ultimately, which leads to getting more rights for Washington, D.C., the best way of doing that is for us all to recognize we're connected and to be able to speak with one voice. I also think that competency, and I know I've used that word a few times now, is what Trump has used as just a tool or just an excuse to federalize our MPD, to nationalize the Guard, and when Trump first nationalized the Guard and federalized MPD, I put out a statement, and I said, make no mistake about it, Trump did this, right? But that doesn't mean that we didn't open up the door to it. We didn't address chronic homelessness, systemic crime, and create prosperity for all of our residents. So please don't get me wrong here. What Trump is doing is horrendous. But that doesn't mean that we don't need to solve the problems ourselves and take care of ourselves as well.
I definitely agree with that, and I'm happy to hear you say that. We have to. We must at this point. We must.
And we're gonna do such a great job. He has no excuse to interfere in our city, in our lives.
That's
well,
how
I
it
mean,
should
you
be.
have the real estate thing. So, I mean, hey, there's, I'm sure you can have a lot of interesting conversations about real estate.
Sure. Yes. Look,
So listen, before we go, I do
we'll
have
do
to
whatever it
ask you,
takes to. Yeah.
I have to ask you one last question that stood out to me.
Love it.
Something that has been in conversations for literally years since I ran for office. Fare free DC.
I love it.
Fare free Metro, something that we have been talking about, something that the council, I believe, had passed at one point. I thought, I don't know what happened, but if you can in 30 seconds, right? Can you just summarize your thoughts on this?
Sure. I mean, it is the proposal that we are outlining is under the belief, first of all, is that we're all already paying taxes, right? We don't pay to use our well, we do pay to use our sidewalks and streets and so forth, right? So it is an allocation of funds, because I believe that transportation should not be a barrier to entry to be able to go to doctor's appointments, to go to school, and so forth. And as you might see if you dig into the proposal, it is both how we're going to fund it and how we're going to execute on it, which again you'll continue to hear me to say. And just in terms of providing, we didn't even really get the chance. I'd love to come back and talk more about equity, but in terms of equity and social justice and social mobility, I think it's 86% of DC bus riders now are Black. So there is a disproportionate share of different communities that are getting hurt by our current system. This is again about execution, and this will help connect our city. Fare Free DC will help connect our city, and to be able to bring down in proverbially and physically barriers.
Agreed. Any final thoughts that you would like to leave the people's voice with?
Just look, I am running to be of service to people, to be of service to our city. And as we talked about previously, I can't do this alone, right? But I am incredibly fortunate that our city has people like you two that are engaged and want to and care and want to make our city better for everybody. So I would ask, as I transition to being a I don't even love saying politician, but as I transition to it, I'm getting really good, getting much better, I should say, of having asks. My asks are that number one is if you have ideas, and Mike, you said it, if you have ideas, solutions, you want to run for office, great. Tell us our ideas. We're putting out everything that we can. If you see something, comment on it, or give us your intellectual capital, give us your experience, give us your expertise. That's my number one ask. Please, please, please. My second ask is is, as I said, I am running to be of service to the city at any time, and this is to every DC resident. Please reach out and let me know how I may be of service to you.
On that note, I think you should provide what's your email address or what there's a way to contact you or ask you for additional questions. And a yes or no question is, should ANC commissioners be compensated? Yes or no?
It has to be yes or no, correct?
Yes.
Time's up. You know what? Yes. Everybody should be compensated. Yes. Yeah, I got it under the line. Everybody, I hadn't thought about it. My initial reaction is everybody should be compensated for their work. I will say, and I know we're out of time. Our team had a very significant discussion yesterday about the roles of ANCs and how to make them more effective, how to give them more power to
sign me up. I want to hear the conversation, be part of the conversation. Let's get more people running as ANC commissioners. That's what we got to do.
On that note, we're going to close by saying this. Our campaign at the Rising Voices of Politics for this particular election cycle, in addition to letting the community know everyone and introducing all of the candidates, we are on a personal mission to fill every vacant ANC seat. We have too many vacancies in our city. That means that there are too many voices that are unheard. So we are on a mission to fill any vacancy in this city. If you're interested in filling a seat that's vacant already, or if you're interested in running in this upcoming election, please let us know. Send us an email, visit us online, give us a phone call. We will help you. Did you have anything else, Mr. Goodweather?
I would just say one of the thoughts, and this is for discussion for another time, is the ANC office reports to council right now. Something we've been thinking about is have it report to the mayor. Have a direct line to the mayor. Let's talk about it another time. Think about.
Oh, that's a deep.
I love it. See how he likes to end the show spicy.
Yeah.
so we
I think part two. Part
two is coming. Until next time, folks. We will see you next week here at The People's Voice. Goodbye.
Take care.
All right, real quick. If you've ever yelled at your phone like, man, why nobody ever talks about this? Congratulations. This podcast is for you. Welcome to The People's Voice, DC, where the city finally gets the mic. And now, this ain't one of those podcasts where everybody sounds smart, but nobody actually saying anything. We talk real life, DC life. The kind of conversations you have after work, on the metro, or when the group chat gets serious out of nowhere. Yeah, we talk politics, but don't worry. Nobody yelling over each other. Nobody reading off cue cards. And definitely nobody pretending they got it all figured out. We're talking housing, money, schools, mental health, culture, faith, purpose, relationships. Basically all the stuff that actually affects your life, but somehow never gets explained right. This podcast is powered by Rising Voices of Politics and founded by Reverend Michael Campbell. But listen, you don't gotta be a politician, a preacher, or an expert in nothing to belong here. If you got opinion, questions, or just a story to tell, you already qualify. And the energy, chill, honest, a little funny. Sometimes deep, sometimes light, but always real. Catch us live every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on YouTube and social media. Miss it? Cool. It drops the same night at risingvoicesdc.org, and you can listen anytime on Spotify. So whether you're outside, inside, commuting, procrastinating, or just tired of podcasts that don't sound like you, tap in, tune in, laugh a little, learn something. This is The People's Voice, DC, where the conversations make sense. The people are real, And yeah, we might even say what you've been thinking.